Good afternoon, everyone, and apologies that we're starting late. Unfortunately, sessions ran overtime earlier and it has an unfortunate knock-on effect for the rest of us. So my name is Bryan with a Y, and we're going to be starting with the Birds of a Feather for the education. And this is really intended for anyone that is involved with training, learning, educating, or if you're an academic in the education space for HPC. So one thing that I noticed as a trend with these sessions, because I've been involved with the panels and the session coordination for these panels for the last few years, is that it really becomes a habit that we meet every year at the CHPC National Conference for an hour or 90 minutes to talk about HPC education. And then we go home and nothing happens until the next session. And that's not only unique to here, but also the large supercomputing conference with 11,000 attendees. We have a big turnout at that session for the education. And yet again, it's the same story where we meet, 80 people talk, have a good discussion, they go away for a year and come back to the next session. So what we're hoping to achieve, one of the objectives here is really to change that from being an annual event to actually an ongoing event where we have a community, a formal community of practice for people involved with HPC education. So to begin, the structure is going to change slightly in terms of the schedule. But we're still going to keep on time. We might go 5 minutes over the allocated time so we don't perpetuate the knock-on effect for the next sessions. I'll introduce myself. I'm Bryan with a Y. I work in the Advanced Computer Engineering Lab at the CHPC, and I'm involved with training student cluster competition and professional system administrators. And what we want to get out of this session is for everyone to come up with at least one word that describes what you hope to take home from a session like this. And my word would be community. Then I'll pass on to my other colleagues here to introduce themselves and share their word.
Hi, I'm Eugene. I work with Bryan at the CHPC. I'm also involved in training of students for the student cluster competition, as well as professional systems administrators with the HPC Ecosystems project. My word would be expertise.
Hi, I'm Lara. I also work in the ACE lab with Bryan and Eugene. I'm quite interested in outreach and education, inclusivity and diversity in the space. And I think that my word would be sustainability.
Thank you. So hi, my name is Benjamin Bosch. I'm a lead software developer at the CHPC. So I'm also involved with human capital development, focusing on training with various workshops we have in the year. So my word would be mentorship. So yeah, so that's my word. So Bryan.
Thank you. So what we want everyone online and also in the room to do now is to contribute your words. And that's going to steer the discussion that we have. And hopefully also find some commonality across why we're here. And that could hopefully form a direction that we take after the session in terms of for 2023. So Eugene has set up a Multimeter. You need to go to we're going to switch over the slide for you to see the link. You've got to go to menti.com and do this now from your mobile device or log onto your cluster and do it. And then when you get to menti.com, please use the code 48113873. That number again is 48113873. And we're now going to display the actual Multimeter results as you're typing them in. You can do as many words as you want. Here's Eugene.
Yeah, just to add some context, once you enter the link on that website or enter the code on that website, you'll be presented with a list that you can enter a word per field. You only have to use one of the fields. You can use as many as you want as well, up until the 10 there are. Please stick to a single word. Thank you.
And you can do as many words as you want. And as you can see, it's growing. We're hoping after 1 or 2 or 3 minutes, when we've seen enough of those words, we're going to use that as the framework for discussing some of these things to form what direction we want to take as a community. And just to clarify as well that just because we've got all the guys from CHPC standing up here as part of this leadership group for this session, doesn't mean we are the de facto leaders for the HPC and education community in South Africa or even Africa. It just has to start somewhere, right? So we've put our hands up to say, let's start this. And once we get the community going, it's up to you as the community how you want this to run, whether we elect leaders, join a chapter, all sorts of other things. And speaking of the chapter, we actually have a colleague who's dialing in at 4 a.m. from Nevada. His name is Scott Callahan. He's the chair for the Special Interest Group in High Performance Computing Education. And he'll be sharing, after we've concluded this discussion here, he will be sharing a bit about the chapter. So I think based on the time, and also you don't have to use unique words, by the way. If you see your word that you would put in is already up there, please put it in for yourself as well, because that'll grow the word so that we can actually see the words that are overlapping amongst everyone here. In terms of time, I guess we can hopefully discuss for about 20 minutes and then take over to Scott and then do a wrap-up conclusion. So we'll just give it a couple more minutes because it seems like there's quite a lot of activity. Okay, we've got quite a lot of population of words there. So Benjamin's going to lead the next part of the session to identify some of the words, but please don't stop putting in words. You're welcome to keep adding if you think there's something you want us to talk about. And you can do it as many times as you want.
Thank you, Bryan. All right, so we're going to carry on. So keep adding words, and if you any words that resonate with you, submit it again. So we can see so far practical growth and community are the keywords, and I see coaching and mentorship is also there. So keep on anything that resonates with you, anything that you feel is important with education specifically, and in HPC, add the words here. I'm also going to just get some input from the audience, certain words that you feel are important to discuss. Might not be, we don't really want a definition for the word, more like what you understand by it. Yeah, so I think that's something important to just to discuss. So maybe we'll start from I'm going to pick on Bryan to maybe discuss the word community, and just from your perspective, what that means to you.
So I really feel strongly about community being a place where you can actually gain knowledge from others. People can work with you if you're stuck on something, like specifically with education. If I want to develop a course to teach first-year students something to do with parallel computing, I would like to come to a community where I can raise my concerns or my challenges and say, hey, I want to do this, but what's the best way to do it? And everyone there knows who I am and they can share with me. And I feel that's a safe place where I can also express my struggles or my challenges. So community is something where even if this entity were to collapse, let's say we form a community practice, the people still know each other and the relationships and the communication carries on.
Thank you, Bryan. Anyone else, maybe from the audience on the side over here, that any ideas, like what does practical mean to you in terms of education? What does growth mean, right? So when you speak about education, we imply growth. We want people to grow and to educate themselves and grow with his skills. So are there any words that anybody maybe wants to give some context or, yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. My name is Willie from the University of Forte. The word I chose was social justice. And I think that's a theme that comes across a lot in our South African context because of where we're coming from. And so I think education is a means of giving that social justice opportunities to those who would never had the opportunity.
Sure. Thank you for that, Willie. Social justice is important for education to make sure everybody gets equal education based on the environment and upbringing. So anyone else? Any words that? Yeah, go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I'm looking at curriculum. I need a lot of help in terms of curriculum development. And I'm looking forward to say, how can we implement the HPC training to our students? And one of the things which we have come up with is in one of the approved programs which we have already have, we created a module called special topics. So that I have looked at this one and saying, this is the opportunity now to say, can we pick up HPC? Can we get the resources and start training through that module? As a full-scale curriculum development takes a while. Thank you.
Thank you. Bryan, did you want to maybe add to that? Maybe.
So one of the things I'd hope that we bring out of this session is the fact that there's a larger community outside of our African community, but we have unique challenges here, which is the social justice aspect as well. But yeah, there's a lot of curriculum available out there that you can tap into, but you need to have the right people to put you in contact with the people there so that you can get access to that material. But there's a large SC supercomputing community where they're currently collating all the different resources together. And there are two groups, one that I hope we create here, but there's an international one already. And you could join that group. I'll be sharing a link to that group later in the session. And then you can send your appeal out to that community. And even if that community can't answer your questions, the network there is so big that they'll put you in touch with the right people. But we're going to be talking a bit about HPC curriculum at the ecosystem session as well. I know you can't make it to that session, but the idea is, even if we can't get the answers here now, the group that I hope we form will allow you to get those answers later, like soon, not later, like a year.
Thank you for that, Bryan. Is anyone else, any words that stand out, maybe that you might want to discuss? So, see, development is quite popular with frequency and mentorship growth and expertise, or maybe anyone in the Zoom that has any comments or feedback. Maybe the team can give us any feedback.
I think I'll just add to the conversation to hopefully inspire others to speak. But I brought forward the word expertise. And what I mean by that is kind of along the lines of community. It goes hand in hand. It's a platform that allows you to understand other ways of doing things, new paradigms, things that weren't considered before, ways of doing things that you may not have known existed in the first place. It's to grow knowledge effectively.
Thank you, Eugene. Is there anyone else? And in terms of maybe do something differently, maybe can I maybe get a show of hands? Like, did you agree education is this growth, or growth should be an aspect of education, right? So do you think growth is important in education? Everyone? The lady in the white, you said growth isn't part of education, or you just decide not to comment? Okay, that's also fair enough. But I think everyone else agrees. And development, would everybody agree that development is part of education? Everyone else? The lady in the white does the refrains, right? Everyone else, development? Okay, all right. Is there any word here that you might disagree with? Something that shouldn't be there in education, something that we focus too much on, something that, or something that we, discuss too much, but that doesn't need to. Is there any words there, or anything that's not here that you might want to, mention in education?
So not so much answering your question, but just something I would like to have mentioned in terms of resources. So my background is in electrical engineering, and I very recently joined the field of HPC. I've only sort of even heard of things in HPC in the last 18 months. So I think that the word resources is really important, and how I've learned to view resources has changed significantly in the last year and a half where I've been working. And I think that what's very important in HPC specifically and such niche fields is that the realization that human resources are equally as important as learning resources that are available for people to view. And I think that in many cases, in line with mentorship and in line with development, a lot of what is valuable is talking to the people who already have expertise in the field and who have already made all the mistakes that they are to make, and to use them as a resource for learning and for education going forward.
Thank you, Laura. I think we're getting quite a cool word cloud here. It's quite nice to see the different words and whatnot. I think we'll keep this and distribute it later. But Bryan?
Training. Someone wrote training. I want to know what it is.
Someone wrote training. Anyone on the audience or Zoom or any? Yeah. Go ahead.
Since we started communicating with you guys, there was that promise of training the administrators, and we're still waiting so that we can get that training to administer the equipment which you would have given us. Thank you.
Want to comment on that? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Although I'm not commenting on what you are saying, I see there's a word color, and I'm trying to understand how to really zoom into it, if anyone can help with that word. That's what I'm that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to really get into mind, what does color say, anything there. So I was hoping someone can really explain something to do with color.
Thank you. That is interesting. Anybody brave enough to put up their hand and answer for that person, or would the person like to explain what they mean by color?
Because my background is in psychology, particularly work psychology, I would only assume that maybe the stats show that opportunity and access to education and opportunity in our country and our context is part of the triple bottom line of issues of poverty,
sure,
class, race, and gender.
Sure.
So maybe if the word color could be removed, maybe the word equity kind of covers those aspects. And what basically I think that argument is that education is split, or the access to education is split along those 3-4 points.
100%. I think Bryan can also attest to that. I mean, with the HPC ecosystems project, I mean, the lack of resources and the lack of equity that's in Africa in general, not just in South Africa. Thank you for that. Are we 7 minutes? Okay. Okay. That's fine. So I'd like to discuss other words. I mean, we can carry on this conversation. So it's very organic. So anything you want to discuss in education, we had color, which was interesting, spin-off. But any other words that you find interesting that maybe shouldn't be there, or a word that isn't there, and maybe something in education that you feel passionate about that you maybe want to discuss? Anything on Zoom as well? Who put new knowledge? Just came up. New knowledge. Who put new knowledge in from Zoom? Anybody put new knowledge? What do they mean by new knowledge? Yes, Cassandra.
Hi, we have Cassandra Pillay on Zoom.
Hi, Cassandra.
Saying, I like opportunity linked to equal opportunities.
Can you just repeat that again?
So Cassandra also says she's the one that put up new knowledge.
New knowledge. Okay, all right. Can and just repeat that previous.
She says it has to do with growth. Okay. Cassandra says she liked the word opportunity.
Mhm.
It's linked to equal opportunities,
Right.
and it has to do with growth.
Growth. Okay, nice. So linking words together. That's aspects of education. That was quite interesting. Anyone else? Any new words? Anything you want to discuss further? I think we have quite a nice word cloud. This is pretty much what we were expecting, so it's quite nice to see. Expertise, growth, practical development, community and mentorship are frequent words, which is, I think, what we can probably all agree on, I think, which is quite nice. Now, how do we implement that is actually the question. Kevin, anything from your side?
I have very strong opinions, and I don't want to impose them on this.
Any word you want to discuss? Discomfort with education. Discomfort. What do you mean by discomfort?
Discomfort.
And what do you mean by that?
I see a lack of negative words there. And one of them I was thinking of was the phrase comfort zone. And so I shortened that to discomfort, with the idea being that we need to get outside of our comfort zones, get away from inertia, get away from groupthink, and a lot of insular thinking about many of these topics. And that's why things like community are important. Cooperation is also important. And so my word I would add would be discomfort.
Thank you for that. But in some sense, I mean, this is a type of groupthink, a group in activity. We are agreeing on certain words. So there's benefit or pros and cons for groupthink. We just need to be careful with it. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Any other comments? Or I think we almost, yeah, we can. Okay, Bryan.
Hi, Scott.
Hello.
Hi, Scott. We're going to switch over to your presentation, and thank you for still staying awake. Okay, whenever you're ready, we can all see you on the big screen.
Okay, great. Let me try sharing my screen here and make sure. Can you see a slide?
Yes, SIG HPC Education Chapter.
Fantastic. Good. Well, thank you very much, Bryan. I appreciate the opportunity. So, yeah, my name is Scott Callahan. I'm the chair of the SIG HPC Education Chapter. I work at the Southern California Earthquake Center, which is based at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. But I actually, as Bryan mentioned, am coming to you from Reno, Nevada today, which is about 300 kilometers east of San Francisco. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the SIG HPC Education Chapter and explain kind of who we are and what we're up to, and look hopefully for some opportunities for collaboration. So we just kind of a brief chapter overview, like what is this organization? The Association for Computing Machinery, or ACM for short, is the world's biggest professional computing society. It has over 100,000 members. And the way that they organize themselves is through what they call special interest groups. So these are like subgroups in different focus areas. So there's like one in graphics and one in AI and things like that. And there's also one in high performance computing. So it's called SIG HPC. We are a subchapter of that. So we're a group that's kind of a subgroup of the larger SIG that focuses specifically on the education, the training, and the outreach side. So we focus on all aspects of those things. Fundamentally, we see our role as building community for HPC educators, helping people come together and share ideas and resources and support. And that's what we kind of hope to do and the role we hope to fill in this space. For the structure of the chapter, we have some elected officers. We have a chair, that's myself. a vice chair, secretary, treasurer. We have 2 at-large officers, and we also have 2 regional officers. Currently, we have 1 from Asia Pacific and 1 from Europe, but we're open to expansion. So if you all are interested in kind of joining in a more formal capacity, we definitely be open to adding a regional officer from Africa. We get a lot of our work done through committees. And so currently we have 5. We have a computational science education committee that right now is focused on curating and creating a repository of resources. If any of you have gone to look for specific education or outreach type resources, you've probably found that there is a lot out there, but the challenge is finding something which is targeted at kind of your the ability level you're looking for and on a specific topic. And so we're trying to help create a repository that would be useful to the community. We have another group that focuses on K-12 education. K-12 here is kind of the US terminology for kids from age 5 or 6 up to they're ready for university at age 18. And so this is how do we integrate HPC concepts into the classroom for younger kids. We have an outreach committee that does things like our website, kind of solicits blog posts and hosts webinars and other ways to make sure the community knows what we're doing. We liaise with systems professionals or system administrators, and we also have a workshop committee that helps put on workshops a couple of times a year. Things that we've been up to recently. So we've had some in-person meetings, finally kind of back to that a little bit this year. We had a workshop at the PERC meeting, which is a HPC conference in the US in July. We had a workshop at SC22 a couple of weeks ago. And that was very well attended. I think we had 100, 120, something in that range. And we also had a BOF on HPC outreach at SC22. Bryan was actually one of the co-conveners of that BOF along with me. And so we have tried to take advantage of these opportunities to build, kind of build the community back up, especially after COVID, kind of reestablishing those connections. We have a number of other activities as well. We host webinars on HPC education related topics, for example, how to use Google Colab or bringing kind of simulations into a university environment in the classroom. We host blog posts from community members sharing kind of what they're up to, sharing resources. I mentioned we're working on this repository. We also recently updated our website. The URL for it is down here, and also the QR code will take you there as well. In terms of things coming up, we are having our annual chapter meeting a week from today, 5 p.m. your time. And so this is an opportunity for kind of us as chapter leadership and the chapter members to review the previous year and look ahead. We are planning to host some regional online workshops. This was actually an idea that Bryan came up with to kind of have a regional nucleus and then provide opportunities for international members to participate in that. And so we're going to start that up in the early part of next year. We'll start up a chapter newsletter so that people know kind of what we're up to, what we're doing, continue with our seminars. So if any of this sounds like a community that you're interested in, that you'd like to participate in, share ideas with, we'd love you to come join us. So you can come be an official member. It's $10 a year US for professionals and $5 for students. We're always, excited to expand our community, exchange ideas with new people, and we're also always looking for volunteers. We have kind of more ideas than we have person hours to accomplish those ideas. So if you have if you have some interest in participating, we'd love to have you. I've left down here both the kind of official chair email for the organization and then also my email. So if you have any questions or you're wondering how to get involved, just let me know. So thank you very much, Bryan. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the chapter for a few minutes. I'll hang around for the rest of the BOF if there are any questions. And if you have anything after, like I said, feel free to drop me an email.
Thanks a lot, Scott. Yeah, so the idea is that we're ahead of schedule more or less because I'm speaking faster than I planned. We'll leave it to the last 5 minutes if anyone has questions for Scott, because there might be 1 or 2 other things that you want to ask as well. We're going to go back to the slide deck. I think we've seen quite a lot from the mentee, and we can share the mentee results later just for interest's sake. Okay, so just to talk briefly about these 2 groups, The idea really here is to not perpetuate this annual event, but to keep the communication going outside of this room in the next 15 minutes. And as Scott has mentioned, there's a very organized formal chapter that exists outside of what we're talking about here. These are not linked to the chapter officially, but they're communities. And it's not the final end point for the community. This is just a starting point. For me, I have Slack overload. If I have more than 3 Slack workspaces, which I do, the rest don't get responses from me because it's just too much. And everyone thinks start a new Slack workspace. But I mean, Slack is useful for me up to about 3 or 4, then that's critical mass. The idea behind these are Google Groups. And the reason I pitched the Google Group idea is because it's a low barrier to entry. You get onto it quickly, and then it's just facilitated primarily through email. Once you're in the group, you can control your subscription. It's a Google Group similar to a forum. You can access it through the web interface, where I'm not going to do a live demo because there's no time. But when you get to it, go to the web interface, because you will not see the previous posts until you've joined. Look through the previous posts, and then whenever you send a new post to the group, which you can do through the web interface or through an email address, it'll then send it out to everyone on the group. And now you will get forevermore every new email that's sent. But don't panic, you can control it, whether it's individual emails, a daily digest, or never, and then only when you manually check. But the idea here is just where we can start the conversation about where we as a community might want to take this. Maybe we do end up with a Slack workspace. Maybe instead we use carrier pigeons. That's what we all have to discuss. And this is just the place to start that discussion. So the top one, the EduBof CHPC 22, is this group here, this community. Get on there now if you're willing, and that's where we'll have further conversations. The bottom one is the one we started at SC. So that's a much more international group. There are a lot more people, a lot more experienced in a lot of these fields that we're new to, and those are really handy people that are there because they want to be there and they want to help. So tiny URLs are easy to remember. I'm going to skip over the slide now, but it's EduBof CHPC 22 and BestBof SC 22. And we've spoken here, Scott described the chapter, the SIG HPC chapter. Okay, that is formal. It's part of ACM. You get a membership, you have to pay. Do we as a community want to start a regional chapter similar to what Scott was describing, where we have a regional chair that represents us in the formal chapter? Or do we want to go alone and just be affiliated with them in some way? It's all up to us, right? It's the community. I have my preference, but I'm not going to dictate. I've been hounded for years to actually be part of that region, the chapter leadership in some form, and I guess I'm going to do it anyway. But whether that relates to us or not, at least then there'll be a voice on the chair panel that can relay what our community is doing, whether we're linked officially or not. Scott mentioned this, that as of next year, I was kind of invited at SC to talk about this, and I kind of pitched this idea and they liked it. We're going to do 3 opportunities a year, online education seminars and workshops that are hosted by the regions. So there'll be a US region that will host it online at a time that's reasonable for everyone else, but then Scott doesn't have to get up early. Then there'll be one for Europe and Africa, and then one for Australia. So I committed, whether it's us or just me, to work with Europe to do the first online education seminar. So it's really cool because Africa will be pioneering this new initiative, which might take a lot of traction. So if you're interested, post to the Google group. If you're interested in the SIG HPC Educational Regional Chapter and you think we as a community should do it, post to the Google group. If you have any other questions about what we can do next year or things that you want, post to the Google group, okay? We're not sticking to the Google group forever unless people think it's fine. But for now, that's where we're starting. And we're technically on time. I promised 5 minutes at the end. So we're running 5 minutes into the intermission before the next sessions. So now there's no further knock-on effect from us. If you have any questions or final comments, you've got 5 minutes. If you want to address anything to Scott, I will conclude this session at 14:50, which is 4:50 a.m. for Scott. So if you have anything further, you've got 5 minutes. Otherwise, hold your peace. We talk in the Google group. There are the links. Cool. And also, just as a matter of interest, When you join the Education Buff group, there is the first thread has been posted, and it was posted by me as a moderator to introduce yourselves. I have possibly missed all the right settings for this group. So if there's something missing, reach out to me privately if you can't communicate in the group, and I've got to fix it. There's everyone that's part of this steering committee for this session today are owners and managers of the group, but that's not where we want to be long term. It's just to start the process.
Thank you, Brian. If there was one word that was in the cloud that I would agree with, it's practical. So I think it's very important what Brian just concluded with is some practical steps to take this forward, because too often I've seen in the past decade an annual discussion about this with nothing much happening. So as Brian says, we need to keep this alive between these annual meetings, and we also need to pass it on. We need to encourage other people, and please keep in mind that as far as we are concerned at the CHPC and Nikki's in general, is that in future our events will be hybrid. That's in order to eliminate the constraints and restrictions of travel and accommodation that hamper so many people in South Africa, but also that would enable more of our neighbors to participate, hopefully. Anyway, thank you very much, Brian, for arranging this, and of course, Benjamin as well. Thank you.
And Laura and Eugene were involved as well.
Yeah, I just also want to appreciate the initiative. I've been looking for this opportunity for the longest of time, and I think it's a step in the right direction. And I totally agree with the comment there, because I read about some HPC work that is being done in Zimbabwe. And when I got in touch with some of the people there, they were just saying it would be nice if we have the meetings online. It will allow us to be able to attend, because to take a flight from there, accommodation. So I'm also interested in how this can expand towards the African continent. So kudos.
Thank you. Maybe I should add to that. This is sort of one of my exciting tasks that I have to do. I'm kind of being asked to facilitate the global development of an HPC curriculum for South African universities. And by global, I mean, it's not up to me. I've got to get the right people to do it. But the one thing that I experienced was access to online training material through leading universities overseas, like University of Edinburgh and Georgia Tech. And I'm busy working on how we can get access to those resources here. And one thing that is not official, so I'm actually scared to mention it because it's probably being recorded, but I'm negotiating a scholarship opportunity for someone to be selected to attend the online master's program in HPC through the University of Edinburgh. And obviously we have to start small and then expand it, but the scope would probably be a valid student from South Africa and try it out. And if it's successful, expand that. So that's also making access to resources more global around the region, but tapping into what's already there. We don't always have to reinvent the wheel. We've got 2 minutes. Okay. Are there any final questions on anyone from the Zoom? Nothing? Okay, well, we're 1 minute ahead of schedule, so ahead of the new schedule. So thank you everyone for coming. Please post in the Google group. If you don't join the Google group, unfortunately, you can't be part of the community we're trying to build. And also thanks to Scott from Nevada for waking up so early and being so willing to do this at such short notice. He also just came back from SC and missed his family for a while. So appreciate that, Scott.
Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
And we'll look forward to bringing you to South Africa with your family at some point. And thanks to everyone from Zoom land for joining as well.